Welcome to the Founding Voices podcast, a series of conversations with humans who showed up before there was a map. I'm Perry, the founder of the Octopus movement, and I believe nonlinear thinking is not just a way of creating possibilities, it's a way of being in the world. Each week, I speak with three awesome founding members of our global human mycelium to explore who they are, why they think differently, and how they're shaping a future that can be built in straight lines. Let's meet today's guest. Here we go. Today's Founding Voices conversation is with Dani Shylit, an innovator, radical synthesizer. You love that word, right? A
I do
human
indeed.
centered leader in learning, neuro-inclusion, and educational transformation. Hold on, this is the first sentence. Many more, Dani. Dani has spent decades working with teachers, leaders, and learners to cultivate learning environments where difference doesn't just fit, it thrives. She has shaped practice across urban and independent school environments and has guided educators to ask deeper questions about purpose, connection, and meaning in education. What makes Dani especially powerful is not just what she knows, but the way she brings together ideas from anthropology to cognitive psychology, from design from design to lived experience to illuminate why something would be wise in a world that often defaults to what's easy, familiar, or efficient. In today's episode, we go beyond policy and strategy to ask the questions that matter most when you're designing live learning and leadership for humans, not machines. Why would this be wise? My favorite sentence with Dani. What does inclusion actually feel like in a learning culture? And how do we nurture environments that honor curiosity, difference, and authentic expression? This is a conversation for anyone who wants education and learning to be more than a system, but a way of being together. Dani, here you go.
I am so beyond grateful to be here and chatting about this. So I love um, everything about bringing ideas together because that is where the answers percolate, and that is where the joy percolates, and that is where the deep connections come together. Um,
I
I
agree. And before you continue, I want to ask you the first question because I will
yeah.
always start with that. And I need to share the audience that we've done a series in the Octopus movement about why would that be wise. I remember meeting you for the first time and I said, "What is the most fun thing you have ever done in a classroom?" And you told me about the series of why would that be wise. And I still love that, and it will be in this interview a lot. I want to talk about why would that be wise in many different angles. But the first question is, what is the octopus in you, Dani? What's your octopus? How does it look like? How does it behave?
So the octopus in me is the flow state, right? It is about how how humans show up in the world to acquire the wisdom to begin with. Because if you approach the world with both sort of this measure of deep reverence alongside boundless curiosity, it creates these waves. And these waves are how I show up in the world as an octopus. So there's such a resilience to being able to flow. And you can look at that from a theoretical perspective and from a learning perspective. Csikszentmihalyi's flow state from the 1990s, and being in that place where learning feels effortless and also so driven and capable. That piece, of course, is in my brain, but it's also just, being able to move through the world in ways where you can collect experiences that create wisdom.
And who doesn't want to be driven and possible, right?
Mhm.
And that movement to create wisdom and explore what is we talk about wise and wisdom a lot. um, what is wisdom for you?
Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, wisdom is dynamic, it's always changing because it is sort of that collection of moments that you experience, right? And how, so it's who you are when you have experiences, so what you encounter, alongside how you hold that experience and why it matters, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So wisdom is that deep and extra rational way of knowing that is born of living and learning and feeling. And yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm curious immediately that I'm listening to you like that's beautiful, and but I'm also thinking immediately, how does that work in your household? So
Yeah.
privately, where what does this wisdom means in your day-to-day life, and
Mhm.
especially for your loved ones? How does it
Yeah.
work, living together with Danny, and you know that wisdom, how does that surface
Uh,
in day-to-day life?
It surfaces rather dynamically across four twice exceptional people, aged 13 to, mid 50s. So it's it is a very dynamic experience. I started with that, right? Um, so wisdom, if wisdom is who you are and what you experience and how you show up and why it matters, it's about like flexing and experiencing all the people having those popcorn moments and feelings and showing up moment to moment. And it's a lot of banter, frankly. Like
What does that mean? Banter. Help me.
banter, like just that cross pollination of words and feelings and connections among four extraordinarily dynamic and processing and constant flowing humans, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And my family, they're amazing, and I love them, and it's hard sometimes, right? Let's be real and vulnerable. When you have four people with wild brains,
Hmm. What
wild.
happens during dinner at your place when the four of you are having dinner and one of you is not having a good day? Then what happens?
Yeah, so I wish I could say that dinner was, a more typical dinner experience here. Because we're all neurodivergent and some of my humans here have ARFID and, different ways of showing up in the world around food. Dinner is not the place where we cross-pollinate most frequently. But when we are all together and we're, experiencing each other in a place and one of us is having a bad day, it becomes that deep presence and trying, for me, it's trying to stay in curiosity. I tend to be that person that the storm revolves around, right? Um, it's not atypical in, contemporary society for, the mom of a family to be that sort of hub of centeredness. And I think
Hmm.
and the wisdom is what holds me there, right?
Yeah.
So the wisdom is what lets me know that I can stay in that space of curiosity, because it's very hard to lose my ish if
Hmm.
I'm curious about what's happening, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's real and dynamic, right? I'm not pretending in any way that being wise is easy. Um,
Would
it's
you consider yourself to be wise? maybe a stupid question, but it's
I
fun
would
to discuss.
I would I would consider all humans to be wise. You know,
Hmm.
it's not a yes or no question to me.
Hmm.
It's kind of like, how are you smart? I think all humans have boundless potential. I believe that in my heart of hearts. And so when we're talking about, that boundless potential, there's a boundless potential for wisdom too. You know, do you,
So
I
that's
think,
also why you're so focused on education, to bring the family dynamics and how you see life into the classroom as well, and have that curiosity, and to nurture all wisdom that is there anyway, and which is
yeah,
sometimes in a strong contrast of reality, maybe. How do you see that?
yeah. So, I mean, a simple, strong contrast of reality is that education, as we typically experience it, at least here in the United States, and I've had conversations internationally as well, that lead me to believe that these are realities for many, many humans, is that it hasn't worked for myself or my kids, right? So, being in I've been in truancy court with my older one. I have been through, my younger one has been in 4 schools in 4 years. So, finding a space for humans that environments weren't built for is very hard.
Yeah.
It's very hard. And so that, wisdom also is born of adversity sometimes too, right? As is curiosity, because there's nothing that gets you more in an ingenuity stance than when things aren't working, right? It becomes that creative thinking, that tapping into innovation, that tapping into new ways, and actually getting back to the wisdom, old ways of knowing and thinking and being, because it really is innovation in education today, in some ways, is really a reclamation of what we've known, in through posterity and through an eternity of learning, because humans have always learned.
How do you see? Um, I believe that there is a hardship necessary to create beautiful people.
I agree. I
People without any difficulties, where everything is easy, is, how many beautiful people do we know that had a life like that? And within the Octopus movement, I know a lot of people that don't fit in the box. They're slightly different. For me, there's also a beauty of hardship, that, yes, indeed, it's difficult to find the right school, and there is a lot of hardship. Why would it be wise to recognize this hardship that helps us to become more present and more beautiful in life than we are by ourselves? How do you see that?
Yeah, that's I see it. Well, how I see it is clearly, and how I experience it is, I attribute so much of my capacity to hold a tragic optimism about change in the world, um, to the reality that my mother grew up in a displaced persons camp in Bergen-Belsen, Germany. My grandparents survived, Auschwitz and Bergen-Belsen and Buchenwald, and like some of the most horrid places in the planet, and difficult times. Um, and growing up knowing that made my appreciation of who they were and how they transcended those experiences to stay human,
Hmm.
an aspiration for my life, right? So when I see people who've hurt and who've experienced hardship, I still see their boundless potential amplified because I know that the experiences they've had around hardship and the fact that they are still showing up with humanity present, like that strengths first asset based space, even when they're in a dark space, you can see that flow of resilience in those human beings, right? It's palpable. It has, to me, it has a color. I know that may sound strange, but it's this sort of deep indigo of having been through an experience that has changed your biology, right?
Hmm.
In a somatic, but also in a deeply extra rational, wisdom based way, right?
If this would be a topic at school, what would be the name of the topic? Because how beautiful would it be to discuss this, 1 hour a week in your classroom on middle school, to discuss the hardship in life and what it could mean and how it transforms. How would you describe a class like that, or how would you title this?
I mean, I did have a class like that. It was the class that we first talked about, and it was called oh goodness, I can't even remember what it was called now, but it was indigenous wisdom basically. Um,
Indigenous wisdom
yeah,
as a topic at school, wouldn't that be wise?
yeah, and what we did is we looked at quotations from different cultures, um, with the expectation of sense making and curiosity being the drivers, and a lot of the quotations that we had were about how one encounters things that are hard.
Yeah.
And middle schoolers are brilliant about knowing what's hard and why it matters. They really are. And they don't have all of the extra baggage that we adults have in approaching those questions with a degree of curiosity, and they'll jump in. So
What
it,
do you
it is
think went wrong with the adults? Because we adults, we jump in differently in that perspective. What do you think happened? Why, why are adults almost not capable to do that anymore? What do you think
I
happened?
I think the linear world has boxed them or caged them or caged their curiosity, right? I think there aren't an so actually this is part of my dissertation right now, frankly. One of the biggest themes that's coming out, I'm doing a dissertation on catalyzing ecosystems, learning ecosystems for a future of human thriving. And one of the things that really is coming to light is that we don't convene, we don't connect. Everything we do is so scheduled, and it's so intentional, and we're going to get this outcome. I mean, so for example, we have these idea of smart goals out there in the world. It's a terrible idea because it's caging. I have something on my LinkedIn, if anyone's curious, about moving from smart goals to wise goals. And that wise piece is like wondering with, and about insights and innovation, and about synchronizing and sustaining and finding ways to really be with one another. And we don't do it enough. We just
No.
don't. We don't stay in the default flow state enough. And
So, based on this, it's a bit of an open door, I think.
mhm,
But why would it be wise, Danny, to activate your octopus?
it is wise to activate your octopus because it is that wisdom and wonder organic generator, right? So when I think of the flow state, right, that we talked about earlier, that's very internal and individual. Like where you as a human being find flow is unique to who you are as a human being. But activating the octopus is not just being that human being, it's being that human being and wondering together with others, right? And so when you are an octopus, and why it's wise to activate your octopus is because you get to flow. And when you do this with others in ways that convene, percolate, cross-pollinate, we can use any metaphor we want. They're all
It's all
beautiful,
beautiful, right?
right? But there you get this expansive, inclusive, shared reverence and deep appreciation for the flow of your flow, synergizing with others' flow, right? And when we convene together to make that happen, it is gorgeous. It is exquisite. It is inspiring. It is, I mean, you discuss the beauty between thoughts, right? Like that those moments of deep extra rational knowing together is what can actually create that energy around solutions in the world. Because if we are a problem based experience, we are just trying to define it and cage it. But if we are seeking potential instead, or we are asset based or strengths based, or just staying this place of awe and reverence and deep appreciation for the potential that humanity holds, that's why that hardship, you find energy to transcend that hardship when you can be in that space of potential.
Very well said.
Yeah. So,
Beautiful. And this makes me curious because every time we talk, we basically always have conversations about
mm,
inclusion and possibilities and connections. And I'm wondering, did you have a belief about inclusion that you had before in your life, and you're saying now, hmm, maybe I was wrong about that. Maybe it's different. Is there anything on
no.
that topic that you're saying, well, this gave me insight. It's different than I thought it would be.
No, I mean, I just want to be really, really deeply honest. Like, creativity is born of inclusion, right? Even inclusion with people whose ideas are even distasteful at times, and you know, you want to hold them at arm's length, but there's still that curiosity. If you can stay in curiosity, what you learn from those hard experiences of having people who show up so differently from you that it's really hard to sort of cross that bridge. Actually, I'm just going to shout out my 13-year-old who started a new school, a few weeks ago, and went to this celebration of the new community that they joined, and their award was the inclusivity expert.
Oh,
and
really?
and that was my 13-year-old, right? um I mean, we live inclusion here, radical inclusion, because there is no human being on earth that isn't worthy in my esteem, right? And and do I think that people are horribly misguided in the world? Do I think they are wrong sometimes? Absolutely. Do I think that they are hurting people?
Hmm.
Absolutely.
So,
There's
Danny, I have a question about this. So, imagine you could whisper a question into the ears of all the leaders in the world,
mm,
not just the politicians and the people you see on TV, but everyone is who's in leadership, in education, in politics, in companies. There is a possibility to whisper a question in all of their ears
Mm-hmm.
at once. I haven't prepared you on this one, so
No.
this is
Okay.
you had no idea what kind of questions I would ask you. But what would be something you would be whispering in all these ears? If you could do that, come
Oh,
on.
I love this question. I would. So, you said a question specifically, right?
Yeah.
So, the question I would whisper is, do you see every human's boundless potential to change the world? Or how do you see every student's and every learner and every human's boundless potential to make the world better? You know, I'm framing this and I'm shaping it, I'm wordsmithing myself as we talk, because the only way you can be curious together, if you is you presume the competence that person, regardless of how they show up in the world and the traits that they have in this space and who they are as an individual, they have something worthy. And if you can get past your own bias to see what's worthy in every human and presume that they are the spark that's going to make your thinking better.
Pause your thinking, right?
Yeah.
Whenever that little voice in your mind pops up, like, oh, I'm not talking with her. She has a really funny hat. It, it's
My
fine.
this is like my trademark at this point,
It's fine
right?
to think that, but maybe you can park it. Maybe you can just, okay, that's an opinion, and now let's zoom in. It's see the potential, right? I think more people should, and special in leadership should do that.
And it behooves them. That's the other part that I think
Exactly.
people, it's not that they are being gracious to see other people's potential, though they are, that's not the only reason. The world gets better when you have many different minds. I see it as a ball of light, right? Like if truth and change and decency is this ball of light, and you have to come at it from every possible angle, and there are
True,
infinite points.
true.
So,
Danny, we need to go to the final question. Sorry.
yeah,
Um, we're
okay,
running out of time, and I'm very
it's
linear
fine.
with time in the interviews, unfortunately.
Understood.
Otherwise, I could
Understood.
like continue and continue. But please, what is your message or invitation to all the octopi listening? Not the octopi meaning being in the octopus movement, but octopi
Sure.
meaning the curious misfits in the world. What is the message or invitation you want to share with all of them?
You belong, and please join us, because the convening, the cross pollination, the percolation, the ideas, we do presume competence here. We do see your worth. And that's why I'm a founding member, frankly. Um, we need more convening, more creativity, more joy, more connection in our world.
Yes. And it's so much fun to connect. I have to say that because of my experience within the Octopus movement, looking at the founding members, it's such an eclectic group of individuals from all corners of the world with all different backgrounds, with all different beliefs, with all different system thinking, with all different everything. Yet it works so well, and there because there is that curious misfit mind with all of them, and it's beautiful to see that the connection works based on curiosity, not based on where you live, what kind of education you had, etc. Blah blah blah. What we use most of the time in our cultures.
And
Curiosity is
that's
the key.
love too, right?
Yeah.
It's curiosity and love together.
Thank you for being here, Dani, not just in this podcast, but also in the movement as a founding member. And if you're listening and feel a spark, follow it. That's your octopus doing something. Nonlinear thinking is not a strategy, it's a kind of love, and it grows when we share it. Thank you, Dani. Thank you
Thank
for being
you.
here.
Thanks. I'm so grateful to be with you.